All right. The time is 7:30, so we'll now call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone can please rise. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion, we accept the agenda.
Sean made the motion, and John seconded that. Any comments? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, the next item is the approval of minutes. The first minutes are from November 3rd, 2021. I know there are several new members on the board who were not here for that meeting. We actually discussed today what happens when there's not enough board members to approve it, because you need 4 to carry the motion. So we looked it up, and I can still vote in favor of it, although I wasn't at the meeting. But for those, we're allowed to do that. But for those who weren't there, you can abstain. But I will vote just so the motion carries. So, is there a motion to approve the November 3rd minutes?
We don't have 4 people that were
We
there.
don't have the
We
4.
have. Oh yeah, Mike. We need Mike.
We
Yes.
need a mic.
Or we need if somebody else wants to vote. I have the.
I thought,
I read
see,
the
if,
minutes.
if someone's not
Mike's here.
present at a regular meeting that
Mike's
they're
here.
involved with, they Here he can comes. vote, but you
You
have a
got him.
situation where you have
Mike's here.
people switched.
Here
They
we go.
don't exist.
Yeah, well,
Perfect timing, Mike.
So we actually, so I
But
looked
we
it up.
know.
Yeah, but we got it.
We have Mike.
Just in
Ralph.
time.
There we go.
All right. All right. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from November 3rd, 2021?
Ralph will make the motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So Bobby abstains.
Oh. I'll abstain.
Thank you, John.
I abstain.
And Sean, okay. And so the motion passes. The next item is the approval of the November 16th special organizational meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the November 16th.
Thank you. Sean made the motion. Is there a second?
second it.
Thank you, Bobby. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Next up is communications correspondence. I don't have any communication or correspondence to share with the board this evening, but I'm sure that will change in the future. So we can move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the here tonight in person for public comment? Is there anyone online? Not at this time? All right, thank you. All right, so next up, we have the monthly budget report. Tom?
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, in front of you The sheet is there's a revenue report and an expenditure report. This is for the general fund. So we try to give this to you at the monthly financial meeting. So you can kind of see what is occurring within the general fund throughout the year. We generally will highlight some of the matters. This meeting, because there's some new participants, I'll go in a little more detail than we normally do, just so that you know, you get a little feel for it. So on page 1 of the report, it's the budget revenue report. Under the account structure that we have is a digit. It goes 01, that's the general fund, and then you have the department 000, and then another 00 for the general fund. So the object in this matter is 0010. That's property tax current. So we have 42% remaining to be collected, which is fairly good, as we have a large collection period coming up in January. So you have a big collection in July, and then another big one in January, and then we collect all throughout the whole year as well. Prior year, so far there's been some strong collections on the prior year amounts, so that's a good thing. So we're at 180,000 to date, and that's a strong collection. That is the object 0001. Going down a little further to the object 00013, that's the property tax for supplemental motor vehicle. That'll be billed out in December and January. So you'll expect collections after that point. You go further down to 00101, which is the educational cost sharing. That's the educational cost sharing that's provided from the state of Connecticut. That is paid out in 3 different installments at varying amounts, October, January, and April. To date, we've received our October installment. You go down further to 00201, pilot state-owned property. So that was a pilot program for the state-owned property within the municipality. And this year, they kind of morphed that to what's called a pilot tiered. And in that instance, they gave two kind of, it's one source of funding, but it comes from 2 different allocations. There was an $18,885 of the tiered pilot and $6,711.35 of the MRSA. So we're going to put that in that line item for the time being, because that kind of was the state-owned, and it kind of morphed into the tiered. So we'll see how that continues on a go-forward basis, if they stay tiered or if they go back to state-owned. As we go down further, is the 00214. That's called the Miscellaneous State of Connecticut. That is just for where the dial-a-ride grant goes. That's a grant for the dial-a-ride program. So far, there's 2/3 of the annual allotment has come in. So that's the majority of that is often the miscellaneous. That's what's budgeted, is the dial-a-ride. There's at times other miscellaneous grants come in and go into there as well. But at this point, it's the 2 dial-a-ride payments. We go down further to 00303, which is the property rental. Property rental is made up of a few things. One of it is the Oak Hill utilization of the BIZ, the Brownstone School. There's a component of that. That's around an $84,872 budget amount. Then the remainder of it is mostly the Brownstone Exploration Park, as well as rental use of buildings of the schools during the year from outside agencies. So what happens is there's rental of outside, which is more or less they pay for the custodian. So the custodians, if they, there's a couple places where they get charged of the custodians, they'll get charged out of the finance budget of rental use of buildings as an expense, or if it's a park and rec program, it'll be a park and rec expense. But if it's on the town side, when the money comes in, if it's charged to the 010 budget, the use of that money goes into the rental use of buildings, as well as the Brownstone. So Brownstone to date had brought in $244,533. That is a strong number for the COVID time. It is not necessarily as strong for the pre-COVID. pre-COVID, that's off about $100,000 to $150,000. So in that time period, if you were to go back, so that, you know, a strong number, but you know, probably won't meet the 402,000 that we were expecting. But you know, we still have the springtime, but generally the main when the money flow structure, it's more July, August, September are the stronger months, and then again it'll come back and be a little strong in June. Going down further, we have 00311, which is workers' comp. Haven't had to speak to workers' comp in a long, long time, and that's good because that means all the workers are staying healthy and doing well. In this matter, we've had a few injuries on one of the Board of Ed side. So those, there have been about 3 or so employees out during this fiscal year. And so when, you know, we have to pay the parties, and then we get reimbursed from KERMA, and that's where the funds come back into and then go out as an expense, come in as revenue. So I just wanted to share that because there's a little bit of a overage at this point because of the people being out. Other areas of just are still staying strong. The 00312 of conveyance tax and the 00314 of recording fees. Still, they were strong last year and staying strong this year, and that's a lot with the market and activities of financing and such. Going down to the next page, 00324 is private duty. So private duty, we have a revenue in this side, and then in the police budget, we have a expense for that. And then try to do, we come up with the model within it. This year, there has been a considerable amount of work, as there was last year, but it's continued to be higher than even than expected. So we're at 156,000 brought in to date already, which is a strong number. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. 00337, which is hearings. Generally, that's an account that stays within that 7,000-ish range, 7 to 10. In this matter, there was a few additional hearings. And then there was I believe a gun range hearing. There was a larger fee so far to date. 00354, which is other revenue. That could be anything that's other revenue. But in this instance, where there was a distribution from KERMA, Members Equity, so we're a member of KERMA as our risk management. When they have a surplus to X amount of level within their organization sometimes votes to send a distribution back to their members. And in this instance, it was around a $41,000 reimbursement. Going down further to 00405, that's the sale of town property. This is an interesting one. This was budgeted as last year's revenue, and it was budgeted in this year's revenue. So last year we received nothing. This year we budgeted 100. Market did well, brought in $211,000 on that. And that's, most of the sale of town property, when we do have sale of town property, most of that will go into the capital fund. When we run our auctions, it goes into the capital fund. In this instance, this was budgeted in the general fund, so the money went into the general fund. But when we do our government sales and auctions and things of that, those funds go into the 08 capital fund. So that's the revenue items so far. If we go to the next report, we want to actually flip over to page 2. The page number's in the corner. This is often an account that we don't have to talk about too much, but the interest rates have played a little bit of a factor in this. And this is under 010, so 01, 010 is the Department of Finance, and then in the general fund and the town side, the third digits are not really necessarily utilized so much. And the fourth digit is an object, is the bank fees. So the bank fees generally are for like things like deposit bags or deposit slips that we have to pay for. Most of the times we don't have fees from the bank. There are fees, but they're generally covered through the compensating balances. In July, we have a lockbox which we utilize for the tax collections. We use it in July. We don't do it in January as much because there's a cost to it. This year, with the interest rates being lower and then a lot of collection and activity in July, when you do the calculation was created a expense. So in July, we had an expense for our bank fees. So that's where you see the fee being charged. So far, since then, we've been doing good to try to mitigate that with keeping a high enough balance in the account. But it's hard. In July, there's a lull there where you're waiting for that money to come in. So you don't have a lot of money as you utilize the money down from the prior year. You're waiting for your next source, so you don't have a large balance. It's hard to keep a high balance in your account. A lot of your money comes in late in July, so you get the charge of the fee structure. So we'll continue to work and watch that, and we'll have to watch that throughout the year, as it's possible to have more depending on the level of activity in a given month. Next page, page 3. This is the technology budget. And often when I try to give you guys updates of trouble areas. There's always areas that are positive and good as well. Well, I'll try to discuss the areas of where there's concerns, so we know the concerns. So in the technology, the overtime account, we budgeted $11,250. We've expended $9,361 to date. So that, that's a high level of overtime. It will probably continue to be of a high nature. And a lot of those are alarm call-ins. There was some email issues that that needed the overtime assistance from the IT coordinator. And also they've been involved in quite a lot of night meetings and Zoom meetings. There were some power bumps from various storms that created trouble that would cause overtime utilization as well. Okay, page 5. So this is the police budget. We spoke of the revenue on, you see 01023001,404, and that's private duty. We've budgeted 155. To date, we've spent 134. So a lot of activity. In a month there alone, it looked like there was $26,000 of activity, a lot of activity going. Hopefully, it will slow down some in the winter months, and then we'll have to reassess as we go on. But I just wanted to share that. So there's revenue coming in, but there's also expense going out. So generally, with private duty, there's more of the revenue comes in than expense goes out. So that's always a positive thing. 01023 service contracts. That's usually HVAC issues and just various service contracts within the police department. There was an HVAC matter within the weight room that was it's a quite costly repair. That was causing us to be almost at the amount for the year there. On page 6, we have 01032 0036 which is traffic signals. There's some traffic signals on Main Street that we currently own. There has been some agreements with the town and the state where the state is to take them over. The state has to go at their pace to do that and install their components. In the interim, we have to fix the lights that are there. So as those are safety matters, as it's usually right there in the intersection with the Brownstone school and such, we have to fix those. They are difficult to fix. They are difficult to repair. So the Signal Service and Dodo has been the company that's been working on those for some time now, and they're getting aged. So hopefully You know, the state will be able to take those over sometime in the near future, and I'm sure that that there's the Public Works and the First Selectmen will work together with the state to hopefully have that. But in the interim, we have to fix the lights, and that's what we're seeing there. Otherwise, expenses are still doing pretty good. In the next page there was a overage in the equipment purchases. We don't buy a lot of equipment within the highway, but there was a need for a curbing distributor piece of equipment that was for a safety concern to the employees, and we wanted to get that remedied. So we had to acquire this piece of equipment that would help improve the curbing, the distribution of the asphalt when you create a curb. So you see that on page 7 under 032, 73,000. So those are the ones that I have for you all. Anybody have any questions or anything? And if you do have other questions, you can always, ask, bring it to Ryan, and he'll get me to help get you an answer.
How are the fuel costs, like with the heating and oil and propane?
They're tough. We didn't lock this year, so we are on the float.
Yeah.
So we do have we have a decent contract pricing through, but the differential is reasonable and strong. It's just that you float with the market. So as the prices go up, it will go up. So we'll.
That's the same with the vehicle gas?
Yes.
We did no contract for that, no locked-in price?
There was no lock-in at this point. No.
Okay.
It was. It just we didn't lock at this point.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions for Tom? Tom, I just want to thank you for taking the time to go in detail on some of this stuff for the new members, and also for going over this with me as well. I mean, there's a lot to the budget, as you know, and so appreciate your work. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and welcome to all the new members.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, and I guess don't go anywhere,
Yeah, I think I'm up next again.
because we need you for number 8, fourth quarter transfers. You all should have a page and a resolution in your packet, and I think Tom's here to speak on as to what is involved in this.
Yeah. So this is related to fiscal year 21. We go in the fourth quarter. We're required to make transfers to make the departments into a positive, and then kind of explain how we do that. So that's we work. I work with my team and the audit group, and we work generally through November-ish, sometimes in early December, and try to get through that to where the levels are at numbers that we anticipate that those are the numbers. So we get to that, and then we present to you the fourth quarter transfer. So in this matter, we had an overage in the probate court, and that was a known. We talked about it throughout the year. That was for additional space. So they requested additional space due to COVID. So we were on the hook to try to pay a portion of that within the allocation. So that their budget is based upon an allocation between the various towns, and when they go up, then if there's a change such as that, we get a share of that. So that was a number that needed to be increased. It went over. The election stipend, the budget went over by 3,100. There was other overages in that line. The worker line had gone over by more than that. Supplies went over. But we did have many different sources of additional grant funding, and that was kind of known that it would go over budget in totality because of the COVID issues. There was a various Help America Vote grant funding that we received. So those items were made sure to make sure that the elections were to go off as smoothly as possible. So in this matter here, we needed $3,100 to get that fund, to get that department back in the positive. So this was more election workers were utilized during, I believe, the presidential elections. 101023, 1404 was private duty. We had a supplemental appropriation last year of I think I want to say 145,000 of additional revenue and additional expense. It exceeded that as well. There was the department needed this 14,200 to go into the positive, so that clearly was more private duty work was the cause. When you go to the Public Works Director's budget, hazardous waste exceeded its line item. So the hazardous waste, most of the time it's related to participation by the residents. That's what we utilize, the LCOG, the lower River COG, I think they call themselves. And that they had changed their company that they utilize to do the program. But with that being said, we believe it was the more participation by residents that caused the overages. In 01031, 00101, the regular payroll, there was some stipends that was given to an employee to help train new employees. And that was an MOU between the union and the town. 01041, 00101, zoning enforcement regular payroll, that was over by around 15,000. That had been discussed throughout the year, as that was a known. There was a position was not filled in the land use department, and in lieu of that, there was more hours given to the zoning enforcement to help cover, and that was the reasoning for that overage. 01093, 00908, interfund transfers out, open space. In that budget, generally every year there's a $50,000 transfer that's per the ordinance, section 14-72, that says that supposed to put a transfer of at least $50,000 into the open space due to various budget concerns and issues that was not budgeted in fiscal 21, but the selectmen wanted to make sure that we made the transfer, and I wanted to make sure that that was transferred per the ordinance. So we transfer the money in. So we try to keep an eye all year to hold back contingency for that matter, as it was a known shortfall in that account. 01051, 009, 36009, Health Department, Chatham Health District, 13,337. The Chatham Health District came to the board, requested a component of our municipal Corona Relief Fund allocation, and the board elected to approve the allocation and give the 13,337 to them. So that is a known overage as well. So most things were either police private duty of positive nature, or things that the elections where we had grant activity come in. A lot of things were either COVID related, or things that we had known throughout the year. So that's good to know that we had a flow there. To take the money out, we used 83,000 of the contingency to get allocated amongst the top, and then the 01040, planning part-time line, that was where the money was always was not spent. So we utilize that to cover the zoning enforcement payroll number, and then just to balance out, utilize 1,272 of municipal insurance to get to the 99,672. Any questions?
Just one.
Sure.
So the contingency of 83,000.
Yes, sir.
I think we budget $100,000 a year for that typically.
Yeah.
And so does that mean there's only 17,000 left in that from now till
No, this
July
is,
1.
no, this is 621, so this is already the year that's over.
This is, oh, okay.
Yep, so we spent, more or less, we spent I think the 17,000 of contingency items
Previously,
previously.
another thing, okay, yeah.
Another thing.
Yeah, I recall a
So I
couple
took-
of them,
right.
yeah.
So I took the difference, and I left it like $300. I have to leave that positive as well.
Yep,
So I just said, okay, I'll take a round number, move
I,
that
oh,
out.
okay, I got how
And
that
then
worked.
took the 15,400 because it was the exact, that was the reason for that overage,
Mm-hmm,
was the underage of the other, and then it just used another number to make it work.
okay,
All
great,
right.
thank you.
Yeah, so this current year, I don't have that, we can go, you can go to your report and you can tell
It'll be in.
what's allowed, what's left in contingency.
Yep,
And I'll just add that, so for elections, the election that we're talking about here is the 2020 election, where we went
Presidential.
all out. It was a presidential election, if you recall, and we had a lot of additional help due to COVID and making sure there was enough resources available.
So around 96,000, 976 available.
96 still.
Yeah.
And that, we already budgeted 50,000 for land, for the
We did
open
budget.
space, right? Like,
Yes.
so that won't come out of that this year again,
No.
right?
No,
We
that's-
just borrowed it, okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, there was a big, the year before, I think the part of the reason was the year before we had purchased the land and that we had made a bigger contribution the year before into the fund. So we didn't put in 50, we put in another bigger number. I can't remember the number, but it was 100, 150, So I think that was part of the reason why they didn't necessarily put the 50 in, because they made a bigger contribution. But to be, to comply with the ordinance, this is
You
a
took
way,
it from- yep.
this is a way to do that, to make sure we're in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right.
We can vote on that.
Yeah, is there a motion to approve the resolution that's here before you? If somebody wants to read that?
Sure. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the below fiscal year 2020, 2021 year-end general governor transfers, 99,672 increases.
Should we read the whole thing, Tom? What do you think?
I think if you say it's as it is,
As
as presented in front of you all,
Okay.
it should be all
So you want to say that, Mike?
Oh, sure. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the below fiscal year 2020, 2021 year-end general government transfers for the fourth quarter transfers for the town of Portland as listed on this document here. Total amount is $99,672.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you, John. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, thank you, motion passes. Thank you, Tom. All right, the next item on the agenda is authorizing resolution fiscal year 2021 state Homeland Security Grant. And this should be familiar to the returning board members because you did vote on this back in October. And Don Guin is here this evening to go over it again, but the short story is that we needed to reauthorize this resolution because of the name change and my title changed. So I had signed it as town clerk, and I can't sign a document before and then authorize it as first selectman. Is that correct, Don? Correct. Yeah, do you want to say anything about this for our new members?
You all have a copy of that resolution? Okay. The purpose of the resolution is to authorize the first selectman to process the application and the reception of the federal funds that we receive to operate the Emergency Management Department. The Emergency Management Department supports and the emergency operations plan for the town. That is required to be renewed every 2 years. So, and it also included in that reviews the emergency operations plan for the Board of Education, which they have for each of the schools, and also any convalescent homes or medical facilities in the town that receive federal funds. If they receive federal funds, they are mandated to have an emergency operations plan also, which our emergency management department reviews and signs off on and submits a authorization form to the state. So the resolution itself, do you want me to read it, or is it clear?
I mean, yeah, if you want to read it, Don, that would be helpful, yeah. And just maybe the resolved, if you have it in front of you.
Yeah, and as Ryan said, the reason we have to do this twice is because of the change of command. The request for the grant can't be signed by the same person who signed the authorization. So it says, I, Treese Dean, the town clerk of Portland, Connecticut, pro temp, do hereby certify that the following is a true and correct copy of a resolution adopted by the Portland Board of Selectmen at its duly called and held meeting on December 1st, 2021, at which a quorum was present and acted throughout, and that the resolution has not been modified, rescinded, or revoked, and is at present in full force and effect. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen may enter into, with, and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate. And further resolves that Ryan J. Curley, as first selectman of the town of Portland, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of Portland, and to do and perform all acts and things which he or she, in this case he, deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of each document, of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. The undersigned further certifies that Ryan J. Curley now holds the office of First Selectman, and that he has held that office since November 16, 2021, and witness thereof.
Thanks, Dan. Does anyone have any questions for Don on this? All right, so can we get a motion then to approve resolution?
I'll make a motion that we approve the authorizing resolution of the Portland Board of Selectmen with regard to the Department of Emergency Management and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Is that sufficient?
I think so. I think so. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bobby. All right. We had a motion. Was there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. So next up, we have the resolution. This is the contract agreement that we have with the low bidder on our brownfields redevelopment project that we have, and our low bidder was Enviro Consultants and Recyclers. So the selectmen, you should have the resolution in your packet. It's blue, and then I also included, just so you can see what's included with this. Now, I'm not sure if Ralph, maybe you remember when had we received the state topper grant at the previous Board of Selectmen meeting yet, or that might be new.
No, I don't.
We've been awarded an additional $375,000 for this brownfields cleanup from DECD, on top of the $750,000 that had already been awarded. So that was some excellent work by the prior first selectwoman and the prior board to help get this project moving. So we have spent some of that money on tie and bond, doing the work and getting this project put together. And so if you look here if you have the letter from the remediation project, and you look on the last page, you'll see we went out to bid. We had four different bids, and Enviro Consultants and Recyclers was the lowest bidder. And here, if you look on that page, you'll see Enviro Consultants and Recyclers, and then you'll see the items on the left-hand side, and then the price of what these items correspond to. And the resolution before you explains that included with what we're going with are bid items 1 through 6, with bid items 2, that's the vegetation clearing, and ENS controls, it's erosion and soil, Tom, right? And so originally, remember that this is 3 properties, 222, 230, and 248 Brownstone Avenue. And so we're gonna save some money because the vegetation clearing and erosion and soil are going to be strictly focused at 248 Brownstone Avenue and not the 222, 230. So I just want you guys to take a look and let me know if you have any questions. But this is important because now that we have this bid and we know this is the company that we're going to go with, this is the next step to get this property remediated and to move it forward so we can clean it up. And we have, as you know, we have our focus group that's been doing some work on you know, the next phases of this project. But this is going to be, I believe this is going to be really great for the town and very beneficial for us in the long run.
Yeah, I was thinking about, it did come before us. I'm just trying to think if we made approved a resolution on it, but we were aware of the 375.
The 375, oh,
I just
good.
can't remember how, and I'm trying to bring up the minutes.
Okay, I was just curious, because I know it came late. It came
Yeah, it
to,
did, but
yeah.
we knew of it, and I just can't remember if we made a motion on it.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it up, but my phone is, the minutes are not coming back.
Well, we haven't made a motion on this. This is what we need. We need a motion on, Tom, do you want to speak on this at all? We need a motion to approve Enviro Consultants and Recyclers tonight in order to move this along, so.
Yeah, so we've worked with our state representatives, the state grantors on this. We work with Ty and Bond on this component. So the grantor reviews the bids and the submittals by Ty and Bond of what was eligible. Ty and Bond then would go through and know within the money that we had available, taking the grant we had, taking the topper, taking out legal for the DECD. The legal for DECD, which is there's a grant award or an agreement letter that Ryan will work with and have to sign, and they're all part of that initial authorization of the grant, was that the select persons can sign those. So there'll be an addendum to the first grant, which would be the topper grant. So in that, there'll be a charge from DEC's legal. If we have our legal, we have to pay that out of our own general fund monies. But that's component. The contract with Ty and Bond, their fee is out of that number. And now what this is left is the 855 is the amount of money that we've had minus the legal from DECD minus the global contract of Ty and Bond. So therefore, this is the amount of funds left available from that. So that's why a little bit different than our normal type of contracts. And normally we'll say, here it is, here's the base bid, here's the acceptance. In this matter, that it says here are the items that we'll select, and then we will not, which come within, or within roughly that amount, and it says we will not exceed what's in our allotment. So then there's, you know, that's kind of Ty and Bond's responsibility to manage that project to stay within the number there. And, you know, it appears that it'll work on completing a lot of the components of the 248 area, but not necessarily the other two that I would assume we would need additional funding to do those components. So as you see there, we don't have enough to do the whole bid, we don't have enough to do the whole amount, but we do have enough to do these components, which should be a very good start to the remediation of this property. Does that help?
Thank you. Yeah, well said, Tom.
Right, thank you.
Tom, just have one quick question.
Sure.
With the additional funding that we have, how much does that give us in terms of additional flexibility to do other things? And what, so far, how much is Ty and Bond, what kind of cost is that associated with overrunning the project? Like, what's the estimate on that cost?
I want to say, I don't have that exact number in my head, but I want to say I think their contract is $259,500. And then we paid $6,116 on DDC's legal. There's roughly, I think, another potentially $4,000 on the next contract amendment for legal fees that we might have to do, so estimating around $10,166. So it literally is, the way that works, if you take that, you know, the amount of money plus the topper minus that, minus the legal, is the contract.
Okay.
So it's saying you can try to do within that. So there's, definitely the topper gave you much more flexibility to even be able to award something that was to a level that would make a significant difference.
Right.
So the topper grant was wonderful to that matter.
Yes.
You know, whether you can do additional things within this, I mean, I think it's, most of this is based upon quantity. So if, you know, there's X amount of dirty this, or if there's X amount of soil that needs to be removed, you know, that's a component. I think the only time you'll know that is when the engineers are working with the remediation company to determine that. And, you know, then if there is a cost savings there, then I would assume there's potential for change orders either way. So, you know, that's something that the engineer would manage.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And while we're on it, I should mention that next week, we'll have a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen next Wednesday at 7 p.m. With the board, as well as the Brownfields Redevelopment Focus Group. And Amy Valancourt from Ty and Bond will be presenting to give us an update on this and exactly where we're at with this project. And I'd like to thank Tom and Amy for where there was a lot of back and forth getting to that number of 855,334 that you see.
So this step, then what we will be able to do is, if we have your authorization to do this, then we are able to have Ty and Bond go back and take, you know, draft up a notice to proceed and have those discussions with the vendor to try to get that contract signed and dialed in, and do those type of things. Without your blessing, we can't do that to go to the next phase. So that's why we're looking here for that.
Thanks, Tim. Would someone like to read the resolution for me? Thanks, Sean.
Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, December 1st, 2021. Contract agreement with Enviro Consultants and Recyclers, Incorporated. Resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes First Selectman Brian J. Curley to execute and deliver in the name of and on behalf of the Town of Portland a contract with Enviro Consultants and Recyclers, Incorporated, of 64 Triangle Street, Danbury, Connecticut, 06810, for the purpose of bid number 2022-01, Brownstone Avenue Remediation Project. Total contract amount prior to any required change orders as it pertains to the State Department of Economic and Community Development Municipal Brownfield Grant Project is not to exceed $855,334, includes for the following items. Bid items 1 through 6, with bid items 2 and 3, vegetation clearing and E&S controls being reduced to include only 248 Brownstone Avenue property. Bid item 9, bid items 15 through 22.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
We need a second?
What's that?
Do we need a second, or are we good?
Oh, no, well, yeah, we need a motion. I think.
Was that the motion, or
That's
that
the
just?
motion.
That's
That
the
was the motion.
That was the motion, so we need a second.
I'll take a second.
Thank you, John. Is there any discussion on this? All right, ready for the question? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Awesome. So next up, we have the solar project that was at the transfer station. We have Robert Klee and Alan Sabins, and Andy Bauer is here as well. Robert and Alan are with Klee Sustainability Advisors. Would you guys like to come up? And there's a presentation. Andy's, all right.
Thank you, Ryan. If I may, my father was town manager of Weathersfield, and so for people who are first time on the board, thank you. Your public service is as vital as it is necessary. Much appreciated. So before I get too far, I just want to also throw some kudos to Tom Robinson and Bob Shea, who have that unique combination of wanting to move things forward, but also being true to their various departments and areas of cognizance, and the town is well served by those two gentlemen. So, all right, so we have an opportunity for solar at the Portland landfill, and boy, how things can change in 24 hours. So let me just kind of start with a brief vocab for those of you who are new to this. It gets kind of confusing. We last year put in an application for what's known as the SCEF program, which is Shared Clean Energy Financing, and it has its own sort of hoops to jump through, and it has its own return of benefits. Then there's also virtual net metering programs. So at your house, you have a meter. When you use electricity, that meter spins. If you have net metering, like a solar array, sometimes when you use electricity from the grid, the meter spins this way, and then when you use electricity from solar, it spins that way, and you get money. If you have virtual net metering, then that can take place over different facilities. And one facility can literally offset the costs from another facility. So just that vocabulary. So a little bit of history as to the landfill. We've been working approximately 18 months on this project, and last spring, the Board of Selectmen and also at a special public meeting voted unanimously to go forward with it. Things happened. There was a rule change about the degree of slope for the SCEF program, which, to make a long story not so long, caused us to not go forward with that. And as it happens, that was the SCEF program year 2, so SCEF year 3 is now available. They have real tight timelines for applying. It is what it is, but we have a couple of options for SCEF year 3. Option 1 is to do what we call an abridged RFP. So we would go back to the 6 vendors who submitted bids in the spring, and Rob and Alan have actually made some inquiries. 4 of the people, of the outfits that are interested have also, that were interested last spring, have said they'd like to try to bid. Now, if we go with an abridged RFP, the vendor who we worked with last spring was not one of them. Okay, so there's that. I'm just giving you the summary, and then if you guys want to like take notes or like you got jot down questions, you can pepper Alan and Rob with them. They love that stuff. Option 2 for SCEP year 3 is to do an open RFP. In conversations that I've had with Alan and Rob, that's doable but difficult for the amount of hoops not only that they have to run through, jump through, but also the vendors. And our timeline for that would be roughly, it's like we'd have 30 days. It may happen or may not. Like I said, they'll give you more details. And option 3 is we could wait and see and then like reinitiate this process in a couple months when the VNM program next comes out. There's not one currently right now, but they tend to come out every so often. And you know, the landfill is extremely valuable property for solar, pretty much because you can't do anything else with it. And the DEEP and other organizations look at that as prime real estate for solar because it doesn't have anything growing on it. There's no buildings on it. You can't build on it. Well, why not put solar panels on it? So that just seems to be the general thinking for landfills. We want to move on this, but we also want to move at your comfort level. So with that, I'm about to turn it over to you guys, so you can come on up. And let me just kind of point out one last thing, if I may. On your resolution there, it says reauthorizing Rob and Alan to do this stuff for us. But I just want to point out that the reauthorization would be for a specific application into a program, but these gentlemen have been working for us for approximately 18 months, doing a lot of very necessary work. So, guys, I'm going to turn it over to you. And once again, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Klee, Sustainability Advisor. This is my colleague, Alan, from CSW Energy. And Andy, thank you for teeing us up and also making sure they're asking all of our questions to us. If we could ask for, we do have a PowerPoint presentation, if we could bring that up and sort of walk through what a lot of what Andy sort of teed up for you. We're gonna, I guess, share the microphone. I wanna make sure that, are we okay on your technical end? Great. So, good evening, Mr. First Selectman and Board of Selectmen. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Our goal here, as Andy alluded to, is to really give you an update on where we are and the potential for solar development at your landfill, and to really get a sense of what you actually want to do, because, as Andy mentioned, this is not the easiest set of programs to navigate and negotiate, particularly as a town entity with all of the very appropriate town processes and rules that need to come into play before you pick a developer for your project. This is fully and hopefully meant to be a discussion, one that we are welcome your questions, stop us at any time, because we are going to go into some details that do get potentially technical. Just a little brief bit about us. We've been working with the town, as Andy mentioned, for about 18 months. I am a consultant to the town on the legal and policy side, really tracking what the state is doing in these various incentive programs to deploy clean energy. I'm the former commissioner as well of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, so I keep track of what that agency does. And as we'll get to, they've been doing things that are challenging with the Shared Clean Energy Program and these slope requirements. So we'll get into that detail in a moment. But Alan, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Good evening, Alan Sabins with CSW Energy, and we support on the technical side of these projects. So we help in compiling the project characteristics and more or less bring that into the RFP content and the RFP itself. And then once we receive those bids, we help compile, evaluate from the technical, operational, and financial perspectives, and then along with the policy and legal, help to compile and to help inform the decision by the town when making its decision for award. Thank you.
And then post-award, we continue to be your consultants and your owner's rep through the construction process, should you pick a developer to go forward. So if I could ask if we go to the next slide to just briefly cover what we're, thank you, going to talk about today is really go through the SCEF program, as Andy mentioned, the Shared Clean Energy Facilities Program. And in a nutshell, and you can go to the next slide. Whoa.
Oh, God.
I didn't touch anything.
We didn't include that animation.
As they're turning to it, I can actually talk to it and it'll come up.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. One more slide. So Shared Clean Energy Facilities is a program designed to try to deploy clean energy, and we're talking about solar, wind, hydropower, et cetera, at the sort of grid scale, at large scale. And it's something important actually to recognize that this is a solar development that is pushing its power out to the grid. This is not a program that is going to offset your actual load or energy usage. This is a type of program where you are in essence a host, and you will be remunerated and paid for hosting that clean energy facility on a landfill, which doesn't, as Andy said, is a prime location, doesn't have other sort of good uses, and it's an opportunity to basically get rent, lease payments, and or tax or pilot payments for otherwise unused land. The program is focused on arrays and clean energy that's between 100 kilowatt and 4 megawatts. It also it runs in the 2 different utility territories. So you're in Eversource territory, and every year there's 20 megawatts available. So if you do the math, and you'll see with the results, at about 4 megawatts per array, that's likely about 5 projects a year in all of Eversource territory across the state. This is the Shared Clean Energy Program. The Shared Clean Energy Program is co-run by the utilities and Connecticut Deep, and the sort of split in their responsibilities is highlighted below, where the utilities care about who is bidding into their program, their background, the project site, do they have site control? So again, this is part of what the town would be offering to that potential solar developer. Here's our landfill. You enter in an option to lease agreement that is binding, that allows them to go ahead to the SCEF process and say, we have a location, we're going to build this size array, but that is a competitive process that is happening after you've selected a bidder. And again, for the new members on the board, this is the challenge, that you run a competitive RFP process to find a dance partner to go to the dance, which is run by the utilities and Connecticut Deep. Connecticut Deep also is evaluating those bidders in that process. They evaluate their operations and management plan, but they're particularly concerned, and this is where the SCEF program has tripped us up, with the site plan and the slope of the solar developments, because Connecticut Deep has been implementing requirements to not have solar developed on lands that have slopes, because they're worried about, during the construction phase, stormwater runoff. So they've had some bad experiences with solar developers outside of this program, actually now more over 2 or 3 years ago, where a solar developer came in, cleared a forest in the spring. They were from Texas. They didn't actually realize that it rains here in the spring. When they cleared off all the trees, all the soil washed into the stream and into the neighbor's property. And that's what the Connecticut Deep was worried about on solar on these steep slopes. Our challenge here is that landfills are designed as little hills with slopes on them. And this is where year 2, and if we go to the next slide, ran into, this is a slide that sort of summarizes the first 2 years of the Shared Clean Energy Program. It's a 5-year program. Year 3 is about to launch. And as you can see, in Eversource territory in year 1 and year 2, there's between 25 and 30 bids. Most of them solar, though a few of them are fuel cells. And in year 1, there was only 1 landfill bid, which did not win. In year 2, there were 3 landfills that bid in, but only 1 was a winner, and 1 was actually disqualified for slope. And that was the Torrington landfill project. they had a project which they bid in, which they thought even complied with the year 2 requirements, and the Connecticut Deep took a very narrow view of what constituted slopey areas. And to make a sort of long story short, if you can imagine a solar array having a big fence around it to keep people out, to keep it safe and secure, that landfill developer only put the solar arrays on the relatively flat spots, but within their fence, they had a considerable amount of areas with slope, and Connecticut Deep rejected them. And they said, we don't want any of your activity anywhere that there might be a slope, which is part of the reason why our project here didn't go forward, because our landfill also has those slopey areas, which Alan will get to in a moment. So the program has this sort of challenge here that on the one hand, they don't want slopes. On the other hand, they actually give preferences for landfills. There's an existing preference that landfill gets a 20% bid preference. So, which means in the evaluation of that competitive bids that come in, if you're a landfill, for example, that comes in at their winner in year 2, one landfill bid in at about $95 per megawatt hour. It got a 20% bonus, so that when they were ranking the different projects, that $95 was evaluated at only $75. And they ended up as the one landfill that won in year 2. So if we go to the next slide, and then I'll pass over to Alan in a moment. Year 3 has, in the aftermath of year 2 with both the Torrington landfill that was surprised that they were rejected, and our sort of challenges here in Portland, we actually submitted comments, the town of Portland did, into Connecticut Deep and the utility regulators to say, hey, this seems wrong, that you're holding these very strong sort of slope requirements for landfills. It's going to cause a lot of landfills to not be able to easily participate in this program. Other developers also submitted similar comments. The Connecticut Deep's concession on this is that, okay, we'll allow for landfills only that 10% of the project site, think about everywhere within the fence, can have those slopes, which they define as a steep slope is over 15%, but that's it. So that's only a 10% ability to have some slopes, and we'll show you sort of images of what that means in the Portland landfill. The other sort of requirements, and you should note these just came out earlier in November, just a few weeks ago, right around the time that you had an election that you were changing over. So this is one of the challenges of these programs, is that they make some pretty substantial changes in very tight timelines, and we'll get to how that impacts your decision process here. There is still this benefit, this bid preference for landfills or brownfields at 20%, and then other sort of tweaks to the system. But the core here of concern for Portland is this restriction on slopes of 10% or more. I'm sorry, 15% or more slopes, so you can only have 10% of your project with those slopes. And I'll pass it now to Alan, who will give a summary. And if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. So you'll notice here on the left-hand side, that is the conceptual design that was part of the RFP in the spring. And that system size came in at 1.85 megawatts AC. And then you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's a transposition of the slope map that's actually behind the conceptual design. And you'll notice that with those slope restrictions, the system size has been reduced from 1.85 to 1.35. So unfortunately, again, in the midst of the year 2 RFP that was out, more of the language and the requirements regarding the slope came in, which then caused us to put it on pause. And now we're able to, with the year 3 guidance, finalize that conceptual design. So on the left is no longer, on the right is what exists based on the current programs. Next slide, please. So I realize this may be a little small in terms of the font, so apologies, but I believe you have it in front of you as well. So, as Andy had mentioned earlier, we wanted to highlight what we're calling option A versus option B. There is also an option C that's not here in the slide deck, but option A is basically going back to the prior bidder group from the year 2 program. There are 6 of those bidders, and having them essentially reprice and refresh based on the prior slide, that conceptual design on the right. So not the larger, but the smaller system size. So what you see on the left in blue is from the program. So that's not our timetable. That's the timetable that's put out through the SCEF program. So you'll notice that the program opens in January. Really, we're going to manage from top to the bottom there, so we'll skip the middle. The program opens in January 2022 and closes with bids due in March. First week of March, to be more clear.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Of course.
For the 2 bidders that said no, and I feel like we had a good rapport with one of them that we were working with really well, did they ever give you a reason why they decided not to?
Yeah, great
Or
question.
you get into that? Or?
Yeah, I was actually just going there now.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, not at all. So with this in mind, we wanted to see, what are the options? So one of the options was to do a refresh, to which we reached out to those 6 bidders. We received 4 yeses and we received 2 nos. The 2 nos actually had nothing to do with the project. The responses that we got back as no's were, we're just not going to do it. One was, we're full with projects more or less, and we don't want to take another one on. And the other one was more in line with COVID, supply chain issues. We don't feel comfortable submitting at this time. The other 4, and I would say probably 2 or 3 of those 4 were actually excited because they saw the utility and the opportunity in this project. To the right is the timeline that we've put together, and working from the bottom up, we're taking into consideration all of the various committees and timelines associated. And Rob, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but we're really working from the bottom up, not the top down. We're managing with the end in mind. So,
Yeah, no, and Alan, thank you. And that hard deadline is at March 4th of 2022. That is where the utilities and DEEP say you have to have your bid in to the SCEF program to even be eligible on that date. And part of that bid package with that dance partner, whoever that is a binding option to lease, demonstrating that they have site control over your landfill. To get that lease, that document legally signed and authorized through your town processes, working backwards, you need to basically have another town meeting and public hearing to allow you to sign the option to lease. And if you're having a public meeting and hearing, you have to have noticed it and you have to have had a resolution. So those are the things that we're kind of drawing the timeline back up the chart to when we would have to go out to the RFP to give the bidders time, in this case, to do that narrow refresh. I do want to say that this is an option that is not a full open RFP, which raises some questions of whether that's appropriate under your purchasing guidelines. And Tom has been very helpful in sort of helping us sort of understand that. And I know under your charter, you do have the option as a Board of Selectmen to waive those types of rules in public interest, but that may not be the path that you want to go down. Recognizing that this, yes, it would still be a competitive, refreshed proposal, but with a limited group. And that's, again, this is in the interest of giving you all the information so we can really understand what you have, what makes you most comfortable in that regard. Yes?
Does the town expose themselves at all legally by not going out to a full RFP? Other potential contractors could cost us some money, you know, calling us on it?
There, as with anything, there is those potential for those outside bidders. You do have in your trying, and I'd welcome, you know, John is your expert. I'm sorry, Tom is your expert here on the procurement matters. That you would have the potential in a resolution under your charter to say that it is in the public interest to do a modification of your normal bidding rules, but that is a perfectly legitimate and appropriate sort of question of your comfort level. Again, unfortunately, this is because of the compressed timelines that are part of the unfortunate reality, which none of us control, of how the state is only finalizing these programs, and particularly these key questions about what slopes are in or out. Because the last thing you want to do is go through this process and, like the Torrenting landfill, then get disqualified and, you know, not even get to participate again because the rules are tightly constrained. If this wasn't on a landfill, it was on a perfectly flat piece of land, you wouldn't be as concerned. But it's a great sort of question of, yes, it is not without some risk of a disappointed outsider saying, hey, I would have liked to. But we also want to tell you we can perhaps go to option B, which is, do you want? Please. Option B is to run another sort of refreshed, full, open RFP, but again, recognizing that March 4th deadline, that very tight timeline, as the driving factor in having an RFP that would again theoretically go out next week and only have the potential bidders have the month of December in which to bid. As we all know, the month of December, like our month of November, has some significant holidays in it. It would be, in essence, in this timeline, asking the bidding community to work through Christmas and New Year's to come in with a bid. And to be honest, that's a concern to us about that compressed timeline in the holidays, whether the bidding community would react to it on, first of all, gosh, what are you doing to us? And second of all, a full request for an RFP may require particularly even our existing set of 4 bidders who said yes, instead of the narrow refresh on price and their new site plan, this would be a full, the submissions ranged from 100 to, 150, 200 page submission in this timeline, which would require, in many companies, that full sort of all the way through the chain sign-offs, et cetera. Again, in this compressed timeline, which we're worried about going out to the marketplace and asking them to do this on those timelines. Other things to add on B?
No, just, the highlight here is, the timeline gets even further compressed than in option B, where we really, the baton handling needs to be seamless, and there really can't be any gaps.
I've been involved in RFP projects with 3 and 4 vendors, and
Right.
I'm looking at your period between questions and responses.
Yeah,
That can go for weeks, and right there, there's 5 days. I mean,
Yeah. yeah.
that's tough.
We agree.
We wholeheartedly agree, which is why and Andy sort of raised it, an option C, which may be a very reasonable option, is definitely a reasonable one for us, may be to say, take a pause and sort of reflect on how these programs fit or don't fit with solar on your landfill. And Andy's 100% right. It is a wonderful landfill for solar. It's actually south-facing. It's land you're not using otherwise. This SCEF program, to be frank, because it has both the utilities and DEEP involved, it has these slope requirements which do not exist in their other energy incentive programs, like the virtual net metering programs. It doesn't have those same slope requirements. It's likely because of DEEP's intimate involvement in the review and sign-off process and their feelings of concern about slopes on landfill. Because in the feedback, in the run-up to today and in the run-up to that final decision, the developer community, the town of Portland, even the utility regulator was kind of pushing back on DEEP to say, this makes it really hard to do solar on landfills, but they couldn't move DEEP off of that concern in this particular program. So the option C is for us to continue to work with you and your team in town on a timetable that isn't a decision tonight to launch an RFP tomorrow to get, things going, and see what is, if there is a different pathway for solar on your landfill. We want to just make sure you have that option on the table.
I guess my third and final question would be, are we cutting off our nose to spite our face if we stepped out of this now? I mean, is there, I'm sure there's a possibility that the programs may be better in the future, but I'm sure there's also the other side of the coin that what we have that's being offered now could go away or could be reduced.
Yeah, could. It very well could. The requirements from year 2 going into year 3 got tighter. And we also, I wouldn't say run the risk, but we run the risk that they could get tighter again.
Yeah, and I'll add that these are competitive, procurements for this SCEF program. So each year that does ratchet down the sort of dollar values that is clearing in that.
And I would think it may reduce the number of potential bidders too with each year going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Eversource territory, probably not as much a concern. In UI territory, they didn't actually clear their whole allotment in year 2. They didn't have, they only get 5 megawatts in UI territory, and they didn't have 5 megawatts of projects. It's
within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other program does have, again, because of the slopes you saw, and I apologize to our team over there, if we can go back up to, go in reverse a slide or two to the pictured ones. Thank you, yeah. So one of as the slopes became more of a concern, you moved from a system size that was 1.85 or so megawatts AC to 1.35. You lost half a megawatt, 500 kilowatts. You may have the potential for a larger array in the other program, the non-SCEF program. So again, that's another lever, not to make it any more complicated than it already is, which it is already pretty complicated, that in that other program without those slope restrictions, you may be able to actually build a larger array. And from your perspective, the larger it is, the more revenue potential you have because you're leasing a larger space, getting more panels. The panels are the thing that makes the developer money as they develop. Other?
I think that's it. I mean, we've probably chocked you full of information. I think really the point tonight was to bring folks up to speed with where the program is and where it will be, and ultimately to help guide toward a path forward.
I have a question. So I wasn't on the board last year when this went through, so year 2. This timeline seems so tight. What was it like last year? Maybe the board might remember. I just don't, did we have the same timing restrictions last year?
No, we did not have the same timing restrictions. The challenge was the program guidance ended up tripping up on the backside of of the RFP process.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't crammed in the front side in the year 2.
So did they change the dates? Is that what they did this time?
So you're insightful. They both accelerated the dates. It's year 3 of the program, so they're launching it at least a month or more early than they did last year. And they've basically been, building the plane right up until, November on what the program rules actually are. So it's
It's a perfect
challenging.
storm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It puts people who want to participate in a tight spot.
Well, and it particularly puts towns and municipal entities that have to go through their public processes for these types of leases and other arrangements in a tougher spot. If you are a private entity with a bit of farmland or an open field, that can get, tied up, that can get contracted for privately without RFP processes, et cetera. It makes it hard for municipalities with all of their important processes that are there for very good reasons to accelerate those to meet these timelines. That's definitely part of the challenge.
Just have a couple questions, and this is fascinating, by the way. If you could just walk us through the process. Let's say in an ideal world, we choose, the 4 bidders, and it fast tracks, and evidently, it sounds like Portland's the slope is good. We have a good possibility there compared to other towns. It seems like it's competitive. But let's say we get it. Walk through how it would work, how long you think it would take, and at the end of it, what are the hard costs to Portland, and what are the potential lease payments? Like, how many dollars are we chasing versus what are the costs and time to do that?
Do you want to talk about timeline?
Yeah,
Just roll through, just up exactly,
Yeah.
just based on your experience, just get an idea.
It's a great question, and that makes a lot of assumptions, including the assumption, even if we find a good counterparty, you will have that sort of negotiation with them over what your annual lease payments and tax payments are. So that's part of the RFP process, is to get a sense of what those bidders are willing to pay for that right to build on your property for 20 years. But the other element of their bid is, for the amount they're going to pay you, they're going to bid in at a certain level, a certain megawatt hour price in that competitive SCEF project. So you'll have gone through your process to pick the dance partner, which will provide you a 20-year revenue stream for the lease payments. But there's no guarantee that they're going to win in that competitive SCEF program. I want to make sure that's entirely clear. You may have picked someone who is a good, well-respected developer at a price that you think is reasonable, and they can have a bid that you think, based on looking at the prior year bids and where the winning range was and the benefit that you get from landfills, and you still may not win. Right. You may not win because there could be suddenly 6 projects coming in really cheap of solar arrays on farmlands that are flat and super easy, and that's just the way that competitive process will work. But I know your question was, let's say all those good things happen and fall in line. It's then a solar development sort of question and timeline. I don't know if you want to kind of go over what that sort of looks like.
Yeah, so typically on these types of projects, you're looking at an engineering phase of several months, and going through all the ministerial approval processes. So you're probably looking at close to 9 months or so to get through all of that. And then the developer is taking the materials in, mobilizing the site, and then you're probably a few months of installation, more like a couple of months, and then commissioning the system. And they'll be managing that system over the term of the contract, which is 20 years.
Right.
So you're probably start to finish, I would say, roughly speaking, about a year and a half.
And I think your question also was, is there any cost to Portland? No, it's actually, as soon as you have that contract with that developer and they have won in that SCEF competitive process and they're just going to mobilize on site, they're paying rent. And that is your ground lease agreement both goes through how much they're going to pay you during the construction phase and how much they're going to pay you for the 20 years. So it's all rental income in, all the costs, the development, the mobilizing people are all on the developer's side.
I have one. What happens in 20 years when the lease is up with the equipment?
Remove.
Yeah.
So the developer, the owner of the system, will actually remove it as like in kind, the same scenario as what it was prior to the solar getting installed.
It just, the new board members weren't here for the last presentation, but believe were the numbers $50,000 a year for 20 years. I got $1 million in my head.
That's right. I was pulling it up while we were talking.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yep.
I believe that. So
Yeah,
if
that's-
you guys weren't here,
Mhm.
it was we're gonna get $50,000 a year for 20 years.
But it would be less.
This would be significantly less,
Yeah.
because it's less array.
Very
than one up
smaller.
there.
Mhm.
But that was the old one, so,
Mhm.
just so you know where we're at,
Yeah.
ballpark.
That's right. Thank you.
That was the estimate for the lease payment, right?
That was all in lease and
taxes?
and
That's
tax,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was the total number, and the town actually has flexibility in how it would want to structure, whether what's lease, what's tax, et cetera. But their end number was basically 50,000 a year. But do remember, that was for the larger array size, and the smaller array size would be some fraction below that, and, you know, understanding where the market is and other things.
I mean, I know in the scheme of other arrays, it's not a huge array, but does that require any additional infrastructure that has to be built to carry the power out, or all the existing lines
Landfills.
can carry that kind of power out?
Landfills, true.
Circuit-wise, you're referencing?
Yeah,
In terms,
just that, with that covered with panels, is there anything that has to be done to the lines running out
Right.
to the grid?
so the project would need to go through an interconnection process with the utility, to which then the utility would then come back to the developer and advise where the circuit is, what the capacity is. There may or may not be some upgrades required. There would likely be something, but all those costs would be borne and taken by the developer.
And that is their model, what they're sort of figuring in their bid price, how much they're gonna get there. They're modeling in and making assumptions on those interconnections. You should know, though, that landfills are harder, because you can't just drive piles into them. You do use different techniques to have the solar basically float on top of the landfill, so you're not disturbing that cap that is importantly there, which is why they get that 20% bid preference, is a recognition of, yes, it is a little harder to do solar on landfills, but it's meant to sort of bridge some of those costs. These are all terrific questions, by the way. Yeah, no,
Surely. Yeah. Any other questions? Rob Well, I guess we'll talk, I guess, now. What's the board thinking with this? I mean, I had put a resolution on, and then in preparing for tonight's meeting, as you know, as we mentioned, we were speaking with our finance director, and Tom brought up some excellent points about the bid process, and so I don't know, maybe option C might be the best at this point, but.
Yeah, I think that the timelines are super aggressive, and my experience with working with these type of things, it's aggressive when you don't have tight timelines. So looking at them, I think it might be kind of unrealistic that you're gonna, in 1 week, be able to turn around and get through all of those like questions and answers. That alone in that time period would be tough. So personally, I'd say I'd like leaning toward option C. I mean, we certainly would want to do this. There's so much benefit to doing this. It's just, we don't want to do something that puts us that handcuffs us.
I agree with Ralph, and listening to what John had to say about some of the questions and how long those take to get answered, and we're just stressing ourselves on a timeline, I feel, where we have the option. I think the landfill's not going anywhere, so I don't think it'll hurt to wait.
I think there's certainly interest from the board.
Which is great.
It's unfortunate, the way the timing is, so I don't know, I think, is that the consensus from everyone?
Right.
Yeah.
I got 2 comments, I don't know, in case if you want.
Yeah, I guess we can take 2 comments.
Yeah, it appears that the RFP for the land appears to be incredibly tight, the need for meetings, submissions, public hearings, and possibly bad weather, meeting cancellation, which would pose problems. And also, from Elmwood, this is a 3 to 5 year program. Why not wait for the 4-year program?
Okay. I think we're all in agreement as well on this, so.
As are we.
As are we. No, and this is why we were happy to come here tonight and really appreciate you know, taking the sort of time and the great questions of us to get to this. What I think is definitely going to let us take a breath.
Enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and make sure that we're actually putting something out there
Mhm.
that the market will respond positively to. Again,
Mhm.
instead of having that reaction of, wait, what are you doing? You know,
Mhm.
we want this to be successful, and we think that having a little more time to do it right and to really work with your team on that would benefit us all.
Do you know if the Build Back Better plan included solar money as well? I mean, they're throwing a ton of money at infrastructure.
Great question.
Is that
It's a-
possible that they're
it's
gonna
a-
bunch
Yeah.
of dollars into solar?
So, great question. One of the primary incentives for projects, clean energy projects in general, is what is the ITC, or investment tax credit.
Yeah.
To which within Build Back Better is actually bringing what is now a 26% ITC
Oh, good.
back up to 30%, which was the original.
Right.
So that may, if it happens and if that passes as is, that would actually be a boon going into
That helps
year
us
4.
if we
That's
can
right.
foresee. Okay, good.
Anything?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys for coming. All right, and next up, we have more solar discussion. Andy, did you want to speak to this? Sure. And this is a solar project at the Route 17 Recreational Complex, and particularly the Concession Building.
Right, so this is a very small project. The task force looked at the Concessions Building at the Route 17 Park this summer, and Alan joined us for that discussion. It would be a 12 kilowatt array. It would be on the roof of the Concessions Building. So I know it's scheduled for a discussion, but let me kind of make a pitch to you here. If you authorize this to go forward, what that means is you would be saying to Alan Sabins, put an application into the ZREC program, which is Zero Renewable Energy Emissions, and tell us if we were going to do, and when you do that, you're saying, if we go forward with this project, then what are we looking at for a price? And that's pretty much what the resolution you have in front of you would do. There would be no, Portland doesn't pay anything for this. This would be another way to shave a little bit of the price off electricity for the Route 17 Concessions Building. If the bid comes back not to our liking, then we walk away. So I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Our risk is essentially zero to throwing our hat in the ring for the ZREC program. Like I said, if we get a price that looks good, we can go forward, and if it doesn't look good, we can say, no, maybe next time.
Andy just said it, is there a timetable to this ZREC? I mean, is there a reason why we would need to vote tonight, or we couldn't wait till we reviewed it more?
It's that same tight timeline type thing. The initial offering or announcement was, early in November. I'm not quite sure anybody's aware that we actually have elections in early November. But so, I mean, and so who's meeting in mid-November? And then you have Thanksgiving, and then the bids, I believe, or the application is due on December 31st of this year. So yeah, it's another tight timeline. But again, the exposure or the risk to Portland is nothing. We get something that we like, we go forward. If not, we don't.
We also have a December 15th meeting as well. Would that be too late to make the cut for this?
Alan, Well, I'll defer that to you. So the question was,
Yes.
Go forward now with the Route 17 ZREC application, or wait till the 15th of December?
Just wait, I mean, again, same as when I was up here 3 minutes ago, I don't want to rush. Don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, so if the 15th is okay, come back then? Is that?
That'll work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, my only, just because I think it would give this board, I wasn't planning on putting forward a resolution tonight. I'd like to talk, again, this is one of those things where I think it would be beneficial to talk with Tom about this ahead of time, just to make sure that, we cross our Ts and.
100%
And
agree.
I know that, so with this project right now, we still can't do any work at the new park. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so, again, it's not about, what it is that until you close the project,
Mhm.
you can't put a penny more into the project. So
Yep.
we have to close the project in order to be able to do other things with the project, with the site.
So I guess my concern is with this, we don't necessarily have a final date, we're trying to get this project closed so that, other work can begin and we can do other things, but I don't know what the timetable is, so that's one of my questions. That's
Understood.
something that I'd like to look into more.
Sure. Talk on the 15th.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is appointments to boards and commissions. Now, we don't have, I don't have any appointments. Do we have any appointments? I don't believe we do. And I think we'll hold off on all boards and commissions, so we'll work for December 15th. The only item on here that I had is that Susan Bransfield had, she had represented the town of Portland on the Chatham Health District for the previous years, and with her retirement, she also resigned from the Chatham Health District. So if it is okay with the board, I would be willing to serve in that capacity, but I would need a motion from an approval of the board to serve in that capacity.
Yeah, Ryan, I'll make a motion to appoint Ryan Curley to the Chatham Health District vacancy.
I second that motion.
Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries. So I think we can, thank you all. I think we can move on to item 14, refunds of excess payments. Is there any volunteers to do the readings?
I'll second it, but I'm worried about coughing in the middle of the readings.
I'll do it, it's a short list.
Once you start it, you do it forever.
Somebody now.
Refunds of excess payments, Lemieux, Darlene, 100,
So you make a motion
Yeah. Okay.
to refund.
Yeah, you make a motion for
Yep,
each one,
for each
and
one,
then
yep.
I'll second it, and we'll move.
make a motion, Lemieux, Darlene, $138.71.
I'll second that.
Make a motion for Jerry.
Wait, hold
James.
on,
We have to-
we gotta do it.
individually.
Yeah, we gotta do them individually. So a motion was made, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries.
Make a motion for Jerry James, $17.99.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries.
Core Logic Tax Services, $2,455.60.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Core Logic Tax Services, $5,808.16.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, motion carries.
Core Logic Tax Services, $4,207.85.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries.
Toyota Lease Trust is for amounts $322.97, $353.53, $630.22, $666.80.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Crushberg Stephen R., $85.32.
Second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Enterprise FM Trust, there's two amounts, $155.30, $305.64.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Honda Lease Trust, $207.30.
Second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Nissan Infiniti LT, $407.52.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Clark Amanda J., $504.51.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Ertl Peter, $262.23.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Bobby. All right, so status reports. Does anyone have status reports?
No, we're a gap here, we're no updates.
What is, Ralph, what is?
Oh, actually, I guess we could say there is a tree lighting event on Sunday at between 4 and 6 with the PHS band and chorus members, I believe also, and a lighting of the tree. So that's Sunday, 4 to 6 at the Biz.
Yeah, that should be nice. We didn't have it last year, so it's good that, it'll be good to celebrate this year. So looking forward to that.
Ralph, what is the open item at the park right now that's not allowed to close out the project?
The last, the last time we want to squeeze in is to purchase a plaque that would recognize the individuals that worked on the project.
Oh, okay.
So that's really, Nate's been working on trying to get prices on that. I don't know where it stands. Haven't caught up with him. I left a couple messages, but I don't know where it stands. So that's really, I mean, there isn't much more left in the
Yeah.
project, but the money to get that. That's what we've talked about.
They got this-
Tom's looking a little uncertain about that, but that's the thing that Nate and I had last discussed.
We got the CO and the warranty has started then, I'm assuming?
I don't know where it stands in terms of. Say that again? Yeah, yeah, no, I'm sorry, you're right. I should have added that. I was going off the assumption maybe we've paid them. But what Tom's saying is that there is still a large amount of money that still, the contractor has to come forward and request that we pay them for this amount. And there was a couple outstanding items with regards to them giving us some documentation and so, I don't know where that stands, because Nate and I haven't talked about it.
Okay.
Tom's gonna come up and maybe give us an update.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
I just want to clarify that comment. So the contractors come through with their final invoice. We had paid down a component of retainage. There's still an amount retainage. To my knowledge, there was a couple open items that Park and Rec Director Foley had been working through with the contractor. So once those items are once we get approval from Nate that he is satisfied, we could pay the remainder of the contract to the contractor. They've given the final invoice. I paid a component of the retainage. There's a little bit. There's a not a little bit. There's a considerable amount of money held to release until the next time. So you know, you hear that component from them. And then, you know, some of the remainder can be looked upon. There's a couple, I believe that there was a possibility, depending on value of what's left. I think there was some insulation that needed to possibly be blown into the wall, but depending on that. We did put in the heating, like a heating system into the building already because of the winter months. You could not go into the cold weather with the water equipment and the other types of telemetry that are in that building without some type of a heat structure. So that was done from the remaining funds. And then, yeah, there, you know, to my knowledge, there has not been the final payment to the contractor. So we need to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Nate and I haven't touched base for the last couple of weeks, so I wasn't sure. I know there's a meeting the Park and Rec meeting's on Monday, so I'll probably reach out to them before then, but I'll know more on Monday, if not before.
I think we can move on. Is any other committee? So we can move on to public comments. Is there anybody here? I'm not seeing anyone online? Okay. So we have informal discussion. I just want to say happy birthday to Ralph. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending
He
your
looks
birthday
amazing
with
for 70, doesn't he?
Ooh, ooh.
Tough crowd.
My birthday's in a couple weeks, I'll get it back. Don't worry.
Ryan, my company was recently at Mohegan Sun for the municipality convention, and some of my bosses came up to me and they applauded us, our town, for getting some awards there.
Yes, actually, that was on my list. Thank you.
Oh, all right.
So this is the work of the previous board, and particularly Susan Bransfield. So yesterday I attended the CCM conference, which is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and so Portland was awarded this is an award from Sustainable CT, and we received our silver award through. There's a long list of requirements that it takes. It's not an easy thing to do. And I don't have the list in front of me, but I plan to make that public soon, so everyone can see, you know, the work that went into it. But yeah, Portland received the silver award. In 2019. We had received our bronze award, and there currently is no gold. So silver's the best that we can do so far. So it was an honor to pick it up on Portland's behalf. But again, it was Susan's work and the previous board. So really want to thank them and our town employees as well, who helped move that along. It was a nice thing to see yesterday. So thank you, Mike.
The other thing I'd add to that is there's also committees and commissions that were involved as well.
Yes, thank you, Ralph. Thank you. I think Clean Streets was involved, and
So, is it Solidarity?
Solidarity, I think,
was
yeah.
also
And that's
involved.
why I wanted to get a full list before because we want to make sure that we recognize everyone with that award, so we'll work on that, but it's a good thing for the town. And then another update, I'll update real quick on the Portland Fair. We'll skip it from the follow-up items, but just so you guys know, there's been a couple meetings since the last Board of Selectmen meeting on the fair. As you know, the Portland Fairgrounds have currently there's multiple factors that are preventing the fair from being held at the fairgrounds, at least in 2022. It does not look like that it's just not a viable option in 2022. So the search for a new location has made its way. I know you were aware of looking at previously the fair committee had requested looking at the Riverfront Park as well as Agalotti Field, which is next to the Brownstone Intermediate School. And that's been ruled out now, so So that field is off the table, but, we've met with the Brownstone Quorum, the Fair Committee, and the town, and also the Exchange Club, and those are the stakeholders in this, and we're looking at the Riverfront Park, particularly how the fair can go on at the Riverfront Park with minimal impact to the Riverfront Park, particularly the trails, and making sure that the quorum is satisfied with making sure that everyone is happy. So what we've asked was, we toured the property last week, and I asked for the Fair Committee to come up with a layout for what they actually need, so that this board can review it after they've worked with the quorum. This is the final body on that property, so it does have to go before the board, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we treat the property with the utmost care. So there's a meeting next week on December 7th. You all are invited. We'd have to make it a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, but if not, I can go if a couple people want to go. It wouldn't be a special meeting. But I believe the meeting's at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock at the Riverfront on December 7th. And so then we should have hopefully a layout from the Fair Committee that we can take a look at to see, because there is some clearing that may need to be done. But we don't, until we have an actual plan, I don't want to speak too much on that. But my plan ideally would be to have this in place and to be able to present this at our December 15th meeting, so that the Fair Committee and the quorum and everyone involved can know what's going on, and because the fair really, it's a lot of planning that goes into it, and if we don't get going on it, we're not going to have a 2022 Portland Fair. And as I think the board had discussed previously, if we miss a third year in a row of a fair, we jeopardize having the fair in the future. So this is really important for the town. So I just want to keep you guys in the loop on that. And that's all I have.
I have one question before we move on. How have things been moving with the Elm Crest property?
I'll be honest, I've been hearing it's moving along. I have not had any interaction yet with Dan Bertram.
I can reach out to Dan. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, before the last meeting, just to check in. I'll reach out to him tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Get back to the board and let everyone know. So.
Thanks, man.
I know they pulled some buildings down. There's been some construction there.
Yep.
I've stopped by once and just kind of walked it and looked around. So they've done a lot of stuff there, but just get an update.
And I
I'll
need
try
to
get
reach
it.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you, Mike, that'd be great, but, yeah, I mean, it's good to see work going on there, it's a long time coming, so, I think we're all happy about that,
Yeah.
so, it's a good thing. Good question, thank you, Bobby.
I had just one more shout out. Last week with Thanksgiving and all, worked with the food bank, and they did a great job in terms of distributing meals out. And just one observation that I noticed for the first time this year was, we delivered a lot of meals with a lot of people that were willing to come down and get something. But there was also a pretty big subset of people that don't like to ask for help. That I put out something to people, say, if anyone knows someone that needs some help or needs a meal or something like that, please get back to me. And there was a pretty big outpouring of people. So I think just be aware that there's a lot of people out there that maybe won't use the services there that could use help. So I think we all, just as a community, need to kind of be aware of that and kind of help people where we can that maybe don't want to do the normal channels. So
Thank you.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Mike, do we know how their supply is now after the holiday?
I'll check with them. It looked like they were pretty good. They had a pretty good turnout, and they had a pretty good supply. We had the day that we passed out the meals, because there were kind of limited hours, There were maybe a dozen people or so that were on the list to receive it that didn't pick up. So, they always have a little extra like that as well. But I'll find out from as well, and I'll report back to the board.
And while you're talking about turkeys, I do want to thank Snyder Civil Engineering because they donated 128 turkeys
Wow.
to those in need this holiday. So that was, it was very, very generous of them. So thank you to Snyder Civil Engineering. And with that, unless anyone has anything else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll
Thank you,
second that.
John. Thank you, Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
2 hours
Thanks.
flat, not so bad.
All right, thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Recording stopped.